So I was really set to have the next video be kind of my practice diaries with these blue bones, but I think I want to take a little more time with it because I'm just not feeling ready to speak to it. And when I do, I want to honor the experience of it. And honestly, the past week leading into this one, I was not having a good time connecting to anything, let's say. You know, the chaos energy has been quite abound, as we're all aware. And I've been leaning in a different direction a bit and kind of recalibrating where practice needs to go at the moment, but also where I need to be at the moment with things. So this video is going to be the Midyear Tarot Tag-esque video. I'm going to, lean into the prompts that Chanel put together for this awesome tag. And it might be a few months late because it's not quite mid-year anymore, but I do want to take a moment to reflect on practice up until this point of the year and how it's shifting and where it's come from, gone to, all of that, and look at the decks that have been in my hands so far this year the most. So yeah, let's just hop into all of that, and I'm going to flip you around and we'll start going through the prompts. Okay, so the first prompt is the deck I've used the most in 2025, and I'd really have to double check, but I'm fairly certain it would be Tarot of Persephone's Garden, because this was the deck I was working with the first several months of the year, and it was pretty much the go-to for quite a while, whereas lately I've kind of been bouncing around since then. So I'm fairly certain it would be this deck. I worked with this deck in conjunction with a couple different Oracle decks, and my winter practice, where I talked about it, is pretty much how I carried through the following couple of months working with those decks. So if you'd like to see that, I'll put one of the little cards up so you could pop over or save the link or whatever it is you would like to do. This is one of my favorite decks, along with Tarot of the Huntress. I love Kara's creations. I just did the comparison video between this version and the newest version, which I did crack the seal. I'm still a little wounded about it, but it's fine. So this newer edition has borders and has this detail with a lot of the images where the figures or parts of the image are coming off into the border. Very cool new addition. Some images have been changed. And I'm very excited to work more with this one. I haven't quite yet. I have not been working with Persephone as in depth at the moment. More so with Hades. So, but when this comes back around for me to dive into, I'm very much looking forward to it. It's definitely, they both have, kind of an autumn feel to it, but the burgundy border, as I mentioned in the kind of side-by-side video, really just lights up as an autumn deck for me. So will be neat to dive into this. And again, the mythology that's tied in with the cards and being able to pull that into readings, use it as a tool for learning about those things, all of that is one of my favorite aspects of these decks. So that is the deck, or this one is the deck I've used the most in 2025. The next prompt is a new deck that's come in my collection, and there were a couple just recently. I'm going to go with this one because the other one is going to come up in a moment, but that would be the Darkwood Tarot. These are some cards from a reading I did, but yeah, this one has been on my wish list for a long time. I kind of kept putting it off because I saw it everywhere. Everyone has it, and it was sort of one of those things where I was like, yep, that's definitely on my wish list, but I don't know, wasn't feeling called to necessarily get it until this year and autumn coming up. Part of it was I was placing an order with a metaphysical shop I really love, and I didn't want to just ship one thing, kind of wanted to make it more, it was a small thing too, so I was like, let me order 2 things. And they had this deck, and I was like, you know what, I've wanted it for a long time, let me pick it up and see, you know, what the experience of it is. And I find the artwork even more beautiful in person, and that's, I mean, true of any deck. Like, looking at it through a screen versus in front of you, you know, it just doesn't really compare. So I love the artwork. I also really am enjoying the guidebook. Just want you to see some of the cards up close. There's a lot to this deck and the imagery and the storytelling that you can work within it for. And also, I had gotten a reading with Racine and from Owl Moon 513, and she used this deck. And so I guess it was just kind of planted in my mind, like, kind of am curious to pick up a copy for myself. I did edge it pretty much right away because it was just the raw borders. I mean, raw edge was not doing it for me. And I used an ink pad that I may or may not be able to find at the moment. We're looking at the probably not option of that. Where's the darn thing? Oh. So I used a VersaMagic Midnight Black chalk ink pad because chalk ink has a slightly different quality to it than my usual black inking option, which is Distress Ink Black Soot. I don't always love the experience of using an ink pad because I find it easier to work with a marker or a pen, but the effect and finish and the lasting power with these is pretty awesome. So I don't know if you'll be able to tell, and maybe I'd have to compare it to a different deck, but the black of this kind of has a charcoal look to it, which I really like with this deck in particular. It just felt more right than a stark black. I think you can kind of see that it's got like a charcoal black kind of feel. So I'm really happy with how that came out, but it was pretty much a pain in the butt to do. And I haven't worked with this one a ton, but I have pulled some cards. I've perused the guidebook. There are a few cards in here that it's mainly the one that's coming to mind, but where I don't know how I feel about the meaning. Like, I just don't know that it's definitely a little different than how I'm used to understanding the card. And I'll see if I can find it. It's the Four of Wands. If I can find it, yes. This one, if anyone has this deck, you know, and is familiar with the guidebook and what it says in there, and has any input of clicking in with it, I'd love to know, because I mean, I understand the guidebook meaning, it's just it differs a bit from how I understand Four of Wands, so I've sort of wondered what to do with this card when it comes up. So maybe I just need to sit with it more. But yeah, beautiful deck. Really glad I have it. It kind of felt right away like one of those, like, yeah, of course this would be in my collection type decks. It just hadn't spoken to me as needing to arrive until recently. And I'm so happy with the edging. It feels so much better edged. The next prompt I'm probably skipping. It's a deck that could be better. And I don't know, I could probably, you know, find something about one of the decks and what could be better about it that I have or have worked with this year. But I don't know, haven't thought about it that much. The deck is who it is, even if it's a little difficult in one way or another because of a shuffle or something. I don't really focus on it too much, I guess. So I'm going to just skip to the next question, which is deck I'm currently using. I'm going to have to switch it to decks I'm currently using because there's several. And so let's start with Blue Bones, because that is the deck that I've been using the most the last month or so. And I've been working with this to get to know it. I've been working with this to kind of move through grief early on. Now it's kind of changed tone to sort of, instead of sitting with the grief, it's sort of navigating presence with where I'm at emotionally, because with just a lot of things going on personally and at a larger scale, it's sort of been disorienting to tap into. So I've been finding this a good place to lean into when it comes to that sort of stuff. And when I do go into a deeper deck diary with this, I am really looking forward to speaking to so many different things. And I think part of why I've put off the video is because there's so much I want to cover. And then I get a little in my head about organizing it and how to approach it, and not wanting to be clunky and wanting to flow. But one other thing I'll mention with this one, I just love the shuffle so much. It is very, it's such a, to me, a comforting shuffle somehow, I guess because the cardstock has this soft, natural feel to it. So I've really enjoyed that. Only deck I have in this cardstock, so it's, for me, a unique experience to this deck. And yeah, I don't know what else more I could say about this on its own. The snake. There's a lot of that going on. And the deep dark, indeed. But the decks I've been pairing with this have varied because I'm still kind of like experimenting with how to work with this. The most recent set, though, I think this is called the Child of the Universe deck. This was a birthday gift. And this has been really cool. I didn't really have this on my radar, and I've really enjoyed working with it. And when it comes to pairing it with these blue bones, I've been finding it a very interesting combination because I can pull the card from these blue bones, which gives me kind of a focus of where the focus is, you know, on a sight to behold. And then I can use this deck as somewhat of a clarifier, you know, a sight to behold in the context of eclipse, or sensuality in the context of Aquarius. You know, that sort of an approach. You and I will always be back then with Taurus. And the book for this deck is super cool. I should probably grab it if I'm going to be talking about it. One second. So this thing is beautifully made, and it's essentially like a textbook. It's very thick. It's got a lot of meat to it. A lot of thought went into it, very clearly. And what I especially enjoy, because this deck, if you haven't seen it, it has different categories in it. We have these sort of extra category with concepts and things like that. But then you have all the planets. You have moon phases. All of them are in one place. That other category of concepts. And then you also have all of your astrological signs. So there's a mix of things in here in the grand scheme of the cosmos. And I really enjoy bringing that into a reading to add sort of broad context to what it's about, or it's just been super interesting. And I've only worked with it for a few days, but the readings have given me another way into this deck, because before this pair, I was using Death Doula quite a bit. And that was really resonating for a period. And then it felt like I needed to shift what I was working with, or how I was working with this. So Baptized in Fire, Saturn, Blooming in the Dark, Full Moon. But back to the book, because I just got distracted. What I really like about this, and I'm sorry that I'm not fully in frame here, is for each astrological sign or planet, there's just like a lot covered. So I'm also learning more about the planets and the astrological signs. We have Venus in astrology. It will talk about the astrology. It will talk about the lessons, the esoteric astrology, and then with the planets, what signs are in relationship, what it rules over, which houses, and what that is referenced to. It also will tie it into chakra, and then has this psychological and behavioral function section, and balanced heart chakra, which I did find a typo, not a typo, but like a miss in editing, but this seems to be correct. It's just the title was off. And then it has all the like reversed stuff covered a bit, and affirmations at the end. So it's very comprehensive. The beginning of the book is also very comprehensive. Like, it's a pretty large section before getting into the cards, discussing all kinds of things about working with the deck and the different ideas that are in here with esoteric astrology, some very cool spreads, working with intuition, meditation. So it's super comprehensive, and I've really enjoyed, so very pretty, I've really enjoyed pulling this in, where blue bones can be this kind of, an emotional concept that can be very fluid and hard to pin down sometimes, right? This adds context or something, I don't want to say grounded because it's like celestial, right? So adds a neat layer for sure. And the other deck that I've pulled into this, so it's kind of a triptych because I just seem to have a thing about wanting to pull 3 cards. But also they've combined very interestingly is the Glyph Oracle, which I had been pulling and working with these blue bones before. But the way the 3 of them work together has also been really interesting. Ooh, interesting. There are no sweeter words than this. Nothing lasts forever, with growth and support and scales and balance. So the way I've kind of worked with these is, this is my central focus with blue bones, and then this is the context of kind of in what sense this is coming through. And then glyph becomes more kind of fluid because it's giving me a symbol in association with all of this that I'll add into what I'm feeling from the reading. And hopefully as I work with this, I can speak even more clearly about it when I do a video with all of these decks and like how I've been working with these blue bones and all of that. But that's sort of a quick summary. So this is one way, or one, I should say, set of decks that I've been working with, particularly the last few days, but blue bones I've been mostly dipping into for like the past month or more now. I don't know what is time. The other, because these are all oracle decks also, you'll notice. In terms of tarot, I have, like I said, pulled from Darkwood here and there, kind of just because it's new, it's fun, I want to get to know it, but nothing too serious. But outside of that, the tarot deck that has been my go-to at the moment is this one. I don't think I've talked about it because I don't think I didn't do a walkthrough. I got it some months back. So this is, once I get it unwrapped, this is the Darkness of Light. And I have wanted this deck so much for so long, and I was very fortunate to post in a group that I was in search of this, and someone very kindly responded willing to sell their copy. I forget what edition this is. I think it might be the 2nd edition. I edged it in black, and this is using my Tim Holtz ink pad, so it's like that jet black. Really happy with how it came out, because yeah, it arrived without edging, and it needed the black. So I've wanted this deck for a while. I wanted the most recent edition that was on linen, But I'm really happy with this edition. I would still probably get the linen if I could find it and I could handle the price, but I know there's probably a lot of people, sell it for, I don't know, more than I can go for it. So at any rate, I got this. She was very generous in her price, really reasonable, and also it included the book, which I don't think that was around in the most recent edition. I'm not sure. But regardless, I have the book, and I never thought so intensely about wanting to get the book. I just really wanted the deck. I never looked into what the guidebook was like, and I'm really glad that I have it, because while in the minors, it's sort of just keywords listed out. The majors, I really appreciate how he wrote about, and I also really appreciate the beginning portion of the book where he talks about his inspiration and how he came to work on this deck. It adds a lot for me, especially because I got this, thinking this would be a perfect Hades deck, and it has been absolutely. The other deck that I tend to work with him is Tarot Obscuro. I still really love that deck, but this one, because it is so RWS, is very straightforward and very easy for like conversational style reading, whereas Tarot Obscuro is definitely like unpacking things in a different kind of way for me. And we're actually going to talk about that one in a couple minutes. So I'll get there, but yeah, this is just really beautiful. The cardstock feels a little bit like, almost gives a little bit cereal box, but I have to say it's holding up well. It's not bowing, and I can shuffle it fine, so I don't mind too much. It's not my favorite shuffle or feel of card, but I do really love this deck, so worth it for me. Actually did my full moon eclipse reading with this deck, and that was something. So yeah, when it comes to tarot decks, it's pretty much been this one. I have occasionally been pulling out when it comes to kind of more Persephone stuff, since I've been on that journey a bit. I have pulled out Deathly Flowers because I love this deck. These also kind of pair interestingly together, although I like this with Obscuro paired better. But anyway, this is another one I really love. This is by Chanel, who created this tag. I haven't dove deep into this in the last couple weeks, really. But prior to that, it was also one that I pull in when I'm kind of looking at Blue Bones and wanting to get some more context. But mostly it's been this one a lot. Not just the past few weeks, but the past couple months, because kind of working with that more masculine energy and with Hades, who is, as you might know, called the wise counselor, has been a very grounding practice for me. And for personal reasons, for larger world reasons, I've really appreciated that, and also the wisdom that I get out of readings that I've done with this. So those are the decks I've been working with. I'm forgetting the next question, so let me check. So the next deck, have I not lit the candle the whole time? No wonder I feel funky. Let me get this going. Could have been beautifully fragranced right now had I lit that. The next prompt is the deck that has been the biggest surprise. And I would have to double check in my journals when I started working with this one. But the deck that comes to mind with that is Tarot Obscuro. I went through all kinds of feelings with this deck. I was super intrigued by it, and it was so unique that I ordered it. Then it arrived, and I was like, what the heck am I going to do with this? It feels weird. I don't know that I'm connecting to the artist's intentions with these images. And I left it unshuffled for, I don't even know, a really long time. I thought I would just go straight to rehoming it, which I usually don't go that way. But I just, it's kind of like a unique, odd deck that I just was like, I don't know that I can surpass the barrier here and be able to draw connection in with these images. But then I actually decided to say, whatever, let me shuffle with it and pull some cards one night because I wanted to test out a couple of prompts I was thinking I wanted to work with, and like immediately hooked in with Hades energy for the first time and was so not expecting that. And things just kind of went from there. And I have found a place with this deck in my collection that is very unique. It is 100% his deck. And I really enjoy exploring the messages of this deck. I feel like it is one that will probably remain personal, and I can build my own personal relationships with over time. I will say, I haven't read through the whole thing for each card, but when it comes to sort of the PDF guide that you can pull up for this deck, some of them I'm really not understanding or resonating with, but other times they've been in such an interesting perspective. And for the most part, I just kind of allow the image coming up in response to whatever I'm asking to speak for itself in the context of, whatever archetype it's in, Knight of Pentacles or the Devil or the Hermit or whatever the case may be. I love this Hermit actually so much. So this was a huge surprise also because I really had no awareness of or even idea of connecting with Hades. And I'm not sure when or how I would have if not for this deck. So Tarot Obscuro most definitely lands in the position of biggest surprise this year, or if it had been the tail end of last year, I don't know, but I worked with it more this year, I think. Next, Deck Crush. So I've had this deck in my crush list, or in my decks I'm crushing on for a while. I've worked with it a bunch, but if you've watched some of my latest videos, over the summer, unfortunately, in June, our dog passed away. And to be honest with you, for two reasons, I kind of put this deck down. One of them being after that and everything I was dealing with and the grief and all the things, because what happened with her was like devastatingly tragic, where other people did things that if they hadn't, things would be different and blah, blah, blah. And same, here, like you always think like, man, if we just didn't go there that one day or that at that time or things like that. But so because it was so emotionally heavy and this is such like an underworld or descent type deck, I was not able to, I didn't want to sink in there. I needed a rope to kind of pull myself up from there a little bit more. So I put it down partially for that, but also the night of her passing, I had pulled two cards. And this kind of goes into where I stand when it comes to divinatory readings. I had pulled two cards that I really wish I had listened to my initial instinct about the message that was coming through. And I didn't. I kind of decided, because it was at that point, we'd been back and forth to the hospital with her, and it was like 3 or 4 in the morning. And I wasn't, you're in a state of stress already. And so I kind of wrote off my initial intuitive impression as me being anxious. But in hindsight, and this was one of the cards, but in hindsight, I wish I'd listened to it. And so in a sense, I wasn't really mad at the deck. I was a little resentful towards myself about that. I'm not now. Now I've kind of processed that and realized like this is part of the journey. Is like sometimes you'll pull cards and realize afterwards like the nudge I had did mean something. And that's the bigger picture process of trusting ourselves, which is a journey because usually by the time of adulthood, you've encountered a lot of reasons not to trust yourself, or a lot of influence to not trust yourself entirely. So that's sort of why this deck got put away, and then I was just swept up in a different emotional realm than where I would go with this one. But it is still a deck crush for me. This is gorgeous. I don't even know how to explain. Like, it just feels like one of those me decks that I'm so glad to have. And the other thing about it, I will get into in one of the other prompts, so I'll leave that for now. But there's just everything in the box. I really enjoy this style of artwork because this creator, Ray Serafina Barker, she has a few decks, but this one and the style of the collage in it speaks to me the most for sure. I'm still considering some other ones, but like this card stalks me. Even I recently pulled this out and did pull a card one evening when I felt called to it, and it was this card, and I was like, every time, not every time, but like out of every 5 pulls, I would say 3 of them are this card. So it's like we're working with that, I guess. But yeah, beautiful artwork. And I totally have a crush on this deck. Love the gilding. Love the back. I have a beautiful, I don't know how to pronounce it correctly, but hypersynth or hyperscene? Hyperscene, I think is the, what is it? Let me look it up now, because I hate when I don't know how to pronounce. It is hyperscene, but I don't know how to pronounce it correctly. But I have a piece of that, which goes on top of this deck and looks perfect. And yeah, it gives me also labradorite vibes, somehow like transformational energy. So I totally have a crush on this deck. And then, maybe I'll just skip a question and go to Great Guidebook. We'll just jump to that because it's this deck that I'm talking about with that prompt. This is one of my favorite guidebooks of the year. I've mentioned a few other ones that are great and that I really enjoy, but I love this guidebook because it's not so much a guidebook. It's a book of poetry and relationship to each card. And it has always been an experience to pull a card and to read through the poem and land on that one thing that I needed to hear in that moment, or that touches on something that I haven't been able to put into words, or whatever the case may be. This is like my favorite guidebook from the year. It's not extensive, it's brief, it's small, but it gives you like artful words to dip into the concept of the card and the concept of the image. And yeah, so this is going on my great guidebook so far for this year. And then we'll move on to the next prompt, I think, which is favorite single tarot card from a deck. I'm going to have to pull out Tarot of Persephone's Garden for that. 1 second. So if we're talking about a single card from a deck that has made the biggest impression on me this year, of course, I'm going to have to skip through and find it. So I'll skip ahead for you so you don't have to watch me sort through all the cards just to find out that it is the last card in the deck. Okay, middle of the deck, not so bad. But for me, favorite card has to be this 7 of Cups and the relationship that Psyche's myth has with the concept and the idea of 7 of Cups, because part of her journey after entering Cupid's garden and all the events that come to pass is heavily rooted in discernment, which has been one of the biggest themes coming up in the work that I had done with Persephone. And I think also collectively it is something that we should all be cultivating, honestly. Discernment to not get distracted with illusory things, or discernment to maintain sense of self in chaos, or what have you. And for Persephone, there are different trials and aspects of the journey that she went through. For Psyche, there are different aspects of the trials that she went through that are specifically about discernment and relating to work that I actually had started doing with Artemis. So it was kind of a very full circle moment in the way that this card kept showing up in practice. And it continued to show up in very poignant points of readings as I was working with this deck. And again, that's something I love about these decks, is being able to look into the mythology. But I will say the first couple times I pulled it, I didn't look all that deep into it. And then, she kept showing up and I was like, okay, let's dive into Psyche a bit, because I kind of loosely knew her story, but I didn't know all the details. And it was in the details that I realized I was being kind of brought full circle, and it was exactly where I left off with Artemis, which just kind of blew my mind, honestly, but also struck me as the importance of this work, of cultivating discernment and navigating the kinds of things that Psyche deals with. I've thought about doing a full video on this. I think I mentioned that when I did the kind of comparison flip through. And there's if you look up Psyche and discernment and mythology, there's so much you could get into, and how that all ties into the lessons and wisdom of the Seven of Cups, as well as the challenges of the Seven of Cups. Very cool stuff. So that's the card that stands out in my head if I'm looking back so far at the year and thinking about things. And this is the deck, because it just was a serious moment when I realized the part of her mythology that was so relevant to not only this card, but also me and what was coming up in readings. So going with that, the next prompt is, what deck do I want to buy by the end of the year or are still waiting on? I mean, you know how it is. There's a few, but the next one that I kind of have my sights set on is the Witch's Tarot, because I don't have that. I also really would love to get the Maria Tarot, but with shipping and all these things, I don't know with the cost now, since everything's become more expensive, when I'd be able to do that, because it was already a higher price point deck. And the Witch's Tarot is an indie deck, so it's also, got a price point that is more than mass market. So, and I'm trying to be good. And I know Witch's Tarot is something that I'd probably want to work with around this time of the year, whereas Maria strikes me as more of a summery, spring, summer kind of deck. So I'm probably holding off on that for the year. I don't know. I don't want to miss it. But anyway, then there's also, because how can I mention one, There's also a deck that Kaluna mentioned a while back that I've really wanted to get, and I tried to get, but of course, because of everything going with international trade, it's just kind of it's not working out. The last message I got is they can't ship here at the moment, and that's the Dira Mazioni Tarot. I don't know. I'm trying to find it right now so I can try and pronounce it with some justice, but I'm not finding it. Yeah, I don't even know if they have their shop open right now. But yeah, it looks like a really cool deck. That and the Witch's Tarot are the ones I would like to get, before the end of the year. But I don't know. We'll see. Deck that hasn't been used yet, or barely, but you want to work with this year. There is a pairing that's been sitting here on my desk, but I really don't think I'm going to work with it this year. It doesn't feel like that's where things are going. So I don't know. Do I pick that or something else? Let me think. You know what? I'm going to maybe combine this, because I also missed the question, deck that makes you happy. And I haven't worked with this year. I would like to work with it. And it also makes me happy. So I'm going with Oak, Ash, and Thorn in the mini version, because part of what makes me happy about it is it's so tiny. It's so tiny and cute. But also the artwork makes me happy. And of course, we're coming into autumn here soon, and this fits that autumn energy. But yeah, this one I would say just makes me happy. It's definitely as truthful and direct as it can be from when I worked with it last year. It's soft because the imagery is what it is. Heartwood to me is a little more intense than this one, where there's something sort of more tender with Oak, Ash, and Thorn. And yeah, it makes me so happy because it's so dang cute. I mean, even just kind of looking at it like this and laying out some cards, it's just like, how adorable is a little spread with this deck? It's just so cute. And so this is going to be the one that makes me happy, I would say, because even in the cards that are difficult, there's something that I find comfortingly precious with this. Between the size, like, to me, this is a perfect mini scale of a deck. I don't know, because now it's not quite level, but if you look at it level, this is a beautiful mini size. And I wish minis were this size generally, because there are some that are like comically small where I'm like, okay, like, yeah, we wanted a mini, but like not that mini. So if anyone knows any other decks that are in mini format that might kind of suit my aesthetic from what you can tell, let me know, because I love having a portable deck, and it's just so cute. It's just so cute. So it makes me happy. So yeah, beautiful King of Swords. Actually, I have someone in my life who I kind of want to get a copy of this for. I got her an Oracle deck a while back, and I really wasn't sure if she would work with it, but it was all animal, and it was deck that I still haven't gotten for myself, oddly enough. Which one is it? Oh, what's the name of it? Wardens. Oh my goodness. Yeah, anyway, Woodland Wardens. I haven't grabbed a copy of that for myself, and the copy I got for her, I trimmed because I thought, I didn't get rid of the borders, but I just thought they were kind of like overdone, so I trimmed it to where it looked more proportional to me. And she also agreed, so I'm glad I did that. But that was a whole thing to trim it, and I don't know, I managed to get her copy to look great, but for some reason the trimmer I have, the next time I went to trim a deck, I don't know if it's out of alignment or what the issue is, but it did not come out crisp cut like it was supposed to. And I was using Dawn Michelle's method, but I think there's just something wrong with the actual cutter I have. So I've put off getting Woodland Wardens because I'm just not really enthusiastic about trimming something. But I don't know, maybe that's another one I will get before the end of the year. You know, we're coming into the time of year that deck might draw me in. So we'll see. Next, favorite video made or seen. But yeah, favorite video made or seen. So as far as made, gonna go with Deck Diaries, just that I started. I don't know, because I did more than one. I don't know if I have a favorite, although the reading on Intimacy with Lacrimosa, like, I loved that reading. I guess I'm happy that I started doing some of those types of videos, because that's really what I started making videos to want to do more of. And I would like to do more, starting with these blue bones, but it does feel more, it feels different than, like, you know, going through decks, because I want to really speak to my work with them, but at the same time, a lot of my card work gets really personal, so I'm like still figuring out how to navigate that entirely. And then as far as favorite videos I've seen, there's so many tarot content creators who I adore, whose videos I adore, that it would just, I don't know how to list just one, but if I were to list a video that was my favorite video I've seen in general that I think might be useful to others in tarot, it's this video called, I think it was the Dark Knight narrative, and I'm gonna have to double check. You would think I would have done this before I started recording. Hold on. I think he's changed the title on this, because I definitely wrote this in my notes as something else, but at the moment, it's called The Psychology of Your Life, Dark Knight Insights. I have it written down as it was called The Dark Knight Narrative, but it's by Modern Intuitionist, and it's a video discussing through the lens of The Dark Knight. Was it a trilogy? I don't know. The movies, I honestly need to watch them. But he's discussing psychologically the idea of your own personal life narrative. And it's a great video for anybody to watch. I think it's particularly great for those of us who are interested in tarot and looking at narrative within cards, but then also how that narrative is translating to personal narrative. And how important personal narrative is and how defining it is and how much power we have over our personal narrative. So that video is one that I would strongly recommend, that I will put a link to for anyone who wants to check it out. And one thing that I've really enjoyed doing, because I've watched it a couple times now, is as I'm watching it, maybe having a deck with me or not, and just listening to the points of the story he's talking about and these concepts within the story, and thinking about what cards relate to that, and then considering what cards have been coming up for yourself. That is a great video. So I'm going to pick that one as one that would be a wonderful thing for anybody to watch, whether they're into tarot or not. I think it's really important that we... and this is something like throughout my 20s into, my 30s. Grappling with your own personal narrative is really, for me, it's been the biggest aspect of getting into a better place with myself and realizing that I have control over my narrative more than anybody else does. And regaining or reawakening and realigning with the power in that, ideally with the goal of being impervious to anyone else trying to control your narrative, right? And there is a huge theme around that going on in the world now. So very big on that. Very much encourage anybody to watch that and to just think about what comes up for them. And his videos in general are very interesting. He has a follow-up video to that one that I think you kind of get trailed off into at the end of the one that I'm linking. So, and then we have pull a card for the next 6 months, or pick a card whose energy that I want to bring into the next 6 months. I think I will pull a card. And given that a couple of my decks I still have some cards out from, I'm going to go with Deathly Flowers for this. And pull a card for the next... Well, it's not 6 months now. It's whatever, the rest of the year. It's September now, so let's see what card comes up for me for the remaining months. Okay, I'm going to go with that, Hanged Woman. And beneath that, Knight of Fire. So with Hanged Woman, I recently have been sitting with the idea of the discomfort that comes from Hanged Woman or Hanged Man energy, of kind of putting yourself in uncomfortable situations for a greater purpose. And I find that interesting, given what I've been thinking about lately, to come up as a card for the next few months of the year. But I think there are a lot of reasons why, for me personally, this may be speaking to letting go of control of some things and sort of suspending action on some things, or maybe decision or whatnot. Kind of surrendering ego to feeling like there needs to be too much force put into something. And just, I don't know, I guess having them be on hold and being in the discomfort of that. I was actually just reading something in relationship to Carl Jung and that idea to allow things to be on hold when you're caught between, say, two different things, and looking for a clear decision, to sit with the discomfort of that and allow a third way to reveal itself in due time. And so that's kind of what's coming up for me when it comes to this. And then underneath that was the Knight of Fire. Yeah, I could see that. Not taking action, not leaping into something. So anyway, I think that about wraps up kind of a review of what's been going on in practice in the year so far and reflecting on it. Of course, this was a longer video. Hopefully I can edit it down a bit. Thank you so much to Chanel for creating this tag. Maybe next year I won't be so late in posting it, but who knows. I really enjoyed doing this, even though I am a bit late in it. Hopefully you guys still enjoyed watching, those of you that did. And thank you so much for being here. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, or whatever it is by you. There is a new hype thingy, I don't know, button, whatever you can press. I've been pressing it for people. I don't know if it does anything, but in theory it does. So, you know, if you want to do that, go right ahead. And like, subscribe, all that. It's been a pleasure, and I'll catch you in the next one.